let's go ahead and talk about Jon Stewart and Stephen A. here, because this is a little more fun than nuclear war, death and nuclear war, and pending fascism.
Is
and these
it more
sorts of
fun
things.
than Waymo's fleeing?
It's on par. I'd say it's like roughly equivalent. So in any case, Stephen A. goes on with Jon Stewart. I watched the whole interview. You know, they were broing out. They were like bonding over their Knicks tragic result, which, you know, I have some of that going on in my household as well. In any case, the part of the conversation people are really interested in, though, is Stephen A. is this like very centrist-y figure. He also just like, he's not a, I know he's like floated this idea of running for president, but his political takes are pretty surface level. He's not like deep in the weeds with this kind of stuff, you know? And Jon Stewart obviously is like deeply in the weeds with this kind of stuff. So they get into a bit of a battle over what is the reason why the Democratic Party with Kamala Harris lost to Trump in this last election cycle. Let's go ahead and listen to how that went down.
The left definitely blew it. I thought that the progressive left, the extreme left, really ruined the election for the Democrats, and that's that's how I view it. It's the truth, and I think that because that happened, it positioned him to get away with a lot of things. Then you're putting forth some of these policies, whether it's transgender issues or other stuff that they would bring up. You had a lot of people that saying that's not where our focus should lie. We're not
but
trying
don't you think that's their focus?
Whose focus?
The right.
Okay.
I feel like the right is far more focused on where you go to the bathroom.
They allowed what people would consider to be a centrist, old guard Democrat to run again for president, and then you say the progressive left wing is the one that didn't. They didn't choose Joe Biden. They don't have the power in that party. Chuck Schumer is out there, you know, writing 8 strongly worded questions to Donald Trump about getting. The progressives are the one going, people in this country want Medicare for all. Do something. They're the ones that have a principled agenda that they are going to put forth that all the Democrats have run from in under the guise of we have to be moderate and we have to be centrist. But that doesn't appeal to changing the culture and dynamic of how this government should work by the people, for the people, of the people.
That's a great argument, and I don't disagree. What I'm saying to you is that
we're done here.
So Jon Stewart then goes on, Emily, to make a case that I think you'll be maybe more sympathetic to than that one. I mean, that one I totally agree with. The right is like utterly obsessed with gender identity and genitals at this point. But we can pause that debate for the moment.
We did a whole
Stewart
Krystal, Kyle and Friends on that. People can look it up.
Well, I fought with Piers Morgan on this. You can.
Oh, much better than me.
But in any case, he goes on to make this case of like, don't you think the real problem is that Democrats didn't actually like deliver or promise to deliver anything real? And so when you've got Bernie Sanders and AOC out there doing this, like stop oligarchy tour, and they're saying like, we're going to help you with your wages. We're going to get you healthcare. Like, isn't that really the problem? Is that Democrats had no credibility on actually addressing people's, he didn't put it this way, but addressing people's material concerns. And Stephen A. couldn't really respond to that. He just, that's a good point, and then went on to say, you know, some other stuff. But, you know, I thought Jon did an effective job of positioning this, because to just frame it in terms of left-right, I think is deeply confusing. And this gets to this other piece of news that just came out. Like Josh Hawley is now introducing $15 minimum wage bill in the Senate. I don't know if it'll make it to the floor. I'm sure there's like literally no other Senate Republicans who would vote for it, but really getting to the left of some of the Democrats on an issue that should be a core Democratic issue. And no one would look at that and be like, oh, this is going to cause like Josh Hawley to lose, or this is going to be bad for Republicans. No, there is a broad recognition that any of this sort of more populist pieces that whether it's Josh Hawley or Trump has pushed with the no tax on tips or whatever, that these are good ideas that are also really popular. And so Jon Stewart's point is basically like Democrats should do more of that. And that would be, you know, an effective way of winning people over if they actually feel like you have credibility delivering on something real to them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is one of the biggest problems, but also opportunities for the left. Opportunities in the sense that Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the Fighting Oligarchy Tour have leaned into. I think the opportunities presented by that challenge. So it's actually a challenge that I think forces Democrats to confront those questions. On the other hand, I think part of the problem here is that politically, the left wing of the Democratic Party has the most attractive, appealing, palatable economic agenda, a lot of my conservative friends would like blanch at that, be like, what the hell are you talking about? But it's actually much easier to sell voters on Medicare for all than it is to sell voters on the status quo or some tweak to the status quo.
Yeah, I'm like, we're going to negotiate drug prices for Medicare on like 5 drugs.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Don't you feel like your life is transformed by that? I mean, it's like, okay, well, that's better, I guess, but.
Right. But the problem is when the left wing's economic solutions are the most palatable and appealing, then you also have the people who have signed the ACLU pledges like Kamala Harris did that allowed the Republicans to run that ad on supporting taxpayer-funded, I think it was transition surgeries for incarcerated migrants, the most specific thing possible. But I think that's where you see Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And Hawley is trying to do this from the right, by the way, because it's also a challenge/opportunity for the right, where you have the most MAGA people having economics that are easier to sell, more palatable to sell to general election populations, statewide populations, and all of that. But they're also the ones that are now super, super tied down to the MAGA brand. If you look at Hawley, for example, a lot of people remember Hawley because of the image of him with the raised fist outside of the Capitol in the morning of January 6th. So it's not as though any side has like the upper hand politically on the question. It's actually something that they're both confronting in their own ways, which is quite interesting.
I think there's a lot to that because what always irritates me is, first of all, number one, it is 100% Republicans who bring up transgender issues more regularly than Democrats because they feel like it's a good issue for them.
Throw my laptop at you.
There's a go ahead and try me, Emily.
I can't get it up there.
There's an obsession. There is an obsession there. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But what drives me crazy is I'm like, okay, so let's accept that like democratic positioning on this specific issue, not even transgender issues in general, the specific issue of transgender girls in sports. Let's accept that democratic positioning on that is not in sync with public opinion. Look at how many wildly unpopular things that Trump says, does, and embraces. Pardoning the violent January 6ers, some of whom beat up cops, polls at about like 10%, okay? Wildly unpopular. A bunch of the things that were done at Doge, wildly unpopular. Insane across the board haphazard tariffs, wildly unpopular. So then you ask the question, okay, so if both sides have, and I would say that Trump has specifically more issues that poll way worse than the overall broad like Democratic program or what Kamala Harris specifically ran on, where, you know, she intentionally in her campaign didn't talk about a lot of the things that were less popular for her. If Trump has, let's just call it even, and they both have unpopular issues that, that they support and that they have said things about in the past, why does it matter for one and not the other? And to me, the reason is, number one, Trump is just a talented figure. Number two, he has a story that I think is wrong and bad and evil and all of those things, but makes some sense. The reason your life is bad is because of immigrants, trans people, cultural elites. So if people sort of broadly get on board with that narrative, they're willing to forgive and forget some of the bullshit that is like wildly indefensible. Democrats, first of all, don't seem like they stand for literally anything at all, which is why this whole like poll testing, let me put my finger in the wind, let me try to reposition on trans issues, let me like focus test some response on girls in sports that's gonna not piss off this person, but is gonna appeal to a moderate, et cetera, et cetera. Like people can smell that a mile away. So if you don't have a coherent story to tell, and there aren't things that you are demonstrably willing to fight for, then yeah, they're going to have a lot more room to tar you with your least popular positions and frame them in the way that they want to frame them. So to me, that's the big difference between why Trump specifically, unpopular issues don't seem to matter as much as Democrats, is because Democrats frequently don't have a spine, don't stand up for themselves, don't have principles they're willing to stand on, aren't willing to fight for anything, and don't have a coherent story about what has gone wrong or honesty, really, about the struggles that people are facing. Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in the country right now. Most popular politician in the country. Does he have a different position on trans issues? No. No, he doesn't. The reason is because he has credibility on fighting for things that people care about. And he has a story that makes sense to people about who is screwing them over, why things have gone sideways in this country, and how, critically, it could be put back on track.
Right. People believe him. Speaking of the opportunities created by all of this, let's put D3 on the screen and talk about Zomentum. So Zohran Mamdani, he's now trailing, according to this new poll, Andrew Cuomo in a 1-to-1 race. So keep that in mind. He's now trailing Cuomo by only 2 points. My suspicion is that that's at least pretty close to the margin of error. I'll have to go look at the poll here, but that was also conducted before the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez endorsement of Zohran Mamdani. We can put D4 on the screen as well.
And before the debate, which went well for Zohran.
Yes, and it went very poorly for Cuomo. So big thing for Zohran here. Across the board, the places where he has lower net favorabilities are just the places where fewer voters know about him to have an opinion. No demo has particularly high unfavorables for him overall. And then another post, a tale of two candidates, Zohran plus 43 net favorability, 28% haven't heard enough. Cuomo -1 net favorability, 3% haven't heard enough. So Krystal,
room to grow for Zohran.
Well, and also you heard it here first. Truly, you heard it here first. Zomentum is absolutely real. Zomentum is absolutely real.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. I mean, listen, I want to be fair and say there are other polls out. Salem's rejoined the chat. There are other polls out that show a larger gap in favor of Cuomo. This particular polling outfit, though, was extremely accurate in the Eric Adams mayor race.
It's not a crazy poll. Right.
No, they do have a track record. I don't think anyone denies that Zohran has significant momentum right now. And this poll coming before the debate, before AOC endorses, is significant because, interestingly, in terms of the gender divide, Zohran is actually doing better with men. So Democrats, if you're looking for a candidate who can appeal to men, and specifically actually white men, there's something to learn from Zohran's candidacy because he's doing really well with young white men are probably his, I'm quite confident, are his best demographic. So he's got some answers for you in this whole man conversation. But, the point about the groups where he's faring the poorest are also the ones that know the least about him, I think is a really important one and may help to explain some of why women are voting more for Cuomo than Zohran at this point, which otherwise is like disturbing and really a little bit head scratching. But women also knew less about Zohran at this point. So there may be room to grow there. He still has some of the demographic challenges that have plagued the left. I think, older Black voters are the weakest demographic for him. Makes sense because you have a larger number of conservatives who, older Black voters tend to, as a group, be more conservative than some of the other parts of the Democratic base. He's doing pretty well with Latinos, though, so he's gained a lot of ground there. And, we'll see. They're hitting him quite hard. They're really trying to go after him in all sorts of ways. And it's going to continue to be a difficult hill to climb. But I think if you're looking at who has room to grow, obviously, he is way higher favorability than Cuomo. I think he's really got a shot in this thing, which is pretty wild and pretty extraordinary commentary on the way that the Democratic base has moved in Trump 2.0 as well.
Yeah, that favorability gap is insane. And it'll be really sad if New Yorkers are stuck with Andrew Cuomo, because I don't think anybody wants that. Even people who are saying they're maybe favorable to Andrew Cuomo are probably favorable to him in the respect that they don't like the other candidates. And they're like, okay, he's fine. I know him. But really, nobody wants Andrew Cuomo to be the mayor of New York City. I mean, maybe like 5 people want Andrew Cuomo to be the mayor of New York City. They're all named Cuomo. So if voters are stuck, maybe they're uncomfortable with Zohran's full democratic socialist platform. And honestly, that's fully understandable, especially after the city was mismanaged under Bill de Blasio. Like, I get it. So if you're forced to choose between Andrew Cuomo and somebody who's, by his own admission, on the left flank, that just sucks for voters. So if it ends up Cuomo, I mean, good luck, everyone. Like that's just I'm sorry that those are your choices. Like,
Well,
I'm so sorry.
let me say something about the way Zohran's run his campaign though too.
Yeah,
because to the circles back to the like Jon Stewart, Stephen A. Smith question and positioning. So Zohran has all the lefty positions. No doubt about it.
Yep.
His tagline is, Zohran, for New York, you can afford.
Yep.
And every time we played his clips, you guys talk to him, like every time you talk to him, what his policy platform is. Freeze the rent.
Yep.
Government-owned grocery stores to compete so that you can, in food deserts, so that you have some fresh fruit food options. He is laser focused on housing in particular, free busing, so that people can ride public transit and additional investments in public transit. People know what his platform is. They know what he stands for.
Yep.
It's really clear. He has a very clear message, very clear story about what has gone wrong in New York, the way it's become intentionally a luxury good under mayors like Bloomberg and Giuliani and Eric Adams. And he wants to make it so that you can live in New York and it doesn't have to be such a struggle. Mm-hmm. Now, will one person be able to accomplish that in one term? No. But he's put forward some achievable, I think, concrete goals that people can really wrap their heads around. And that's why his campaign has taken off. And it's not just against Cuomo. Like, there are a bunch of longtime established New York City Pauls in this race who are getting no traction. Mm-hmm. He has sucked up all of the oxygen, all of the not Cuomo oxygen. And it's a real testament to the strength of his very straightforward proposition and his direct pitch to people's materials concerns and his story about, how we got here and what went wrong as well.
Yeah.
And the white bros, the young men, Emily, they're eating it up. So
can't get enough.
Again, lessons to be learned here.
Yeah, it's how AOC won. It's not like esoteric DSA navel gazing. It's a huge lesson, I think, for national Democrats.
All right, guys, 2 quick things. Number 1, by popular demand, we are bringing back the monthly subscription. Number 2, you can get a month free, Ryan, by putting in that promo code BPFree at breakingpoints.com.
Yeah, and I think the most important reason to become a premium subscriber is just as an act of support for the show. It helps us do what we're doing. But if you're curious what the benefits are of doing it, take the free month, and you'll see you get the AMAs, you get the second half of the Friday show, you get the full show emailed to you earlier. It makes your life much better. Do it for a month at breakingpoints.com. BP free is a promo code. And if after a month your life isn't dramatically improved, you can just cancel. If it is, it's just $10 a month.
There you go.